It wasn't supposed to happen like this. In a room where reputations were built over decades, one sentence threatened to tear one down in seconds. According to those who were there, someone said it flatly, without heat. Kung Fu is useless. The sound didn't echo, but the effect did. Movement stalled, breath caught, and every gaze shifted to Bruce Lee. What followed wasn't an argument or a speech, but a decision made with the body. One adjustment, a few steps, and a silence that felt heavier than shouting. To understand why that moment mattered, you have to go back to how such different worlds ended up sharing the same floor in the first place. Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. The comment lands harder than the weights. A few heads turn, then stop mid-turn, as if someone has grabbed them by the collar. For a breath, the only movement is a hand easing a dumbbell down, metal kissing wood with careful restraint. It is early in the 70s, and the room is not large. A Los Angeles training hall with scuffed floorboards, rubber mats that smell of heat and old sweat, and a faint sting of muscle liniment clinging to the back of the throat. Sneakers squeak in small, restless adjustments. Beyond the door, there's a brief thump of footsteps in the corridor, muffled voices. Then the corridor goes quiet too, as if it knows better. Bruce Lee has been running an open session, nothing theatrical. He works with a student at arm's length, showing how distance is not measured by inches, but by timing. His hands move like simple punctuation. A stop, a comma, a question mark. He shifts his weight, and the student's reach turns empty. Not by force, but by being late. A few of the older trainers watch with their chins lifted, judging with their eyes the way they would judge a jab. The group around him is mixed on purpose. Boxing coaches with folded arms, young fighters trying not to look eager, a couple of men who talk like journalists even when they are silent. And, according to those who were there, someone connected directly to Muhammad Ali, either Ali himself stepping in briefly, or a close member of his circle, stands near the back where the light is harsher and every reaction can be seen. At first, the mood has the warmth of curiosity. Then a single line cuts across it. Kung Fu, someone says, is useless in a real fight. The phrasing varies in retellings, but the intent does not. The first turn is that it is not a newcomer speaking. It comes from a voice the room recognizes, one that carries the authority of real rings, real corners, real bruised knuckles. The second turn is the answer from the audience. Not laughter, not outrage, just a spread of small nods, quick and public. A man who has said nothing all session inhales sharply, then holds it, as if he has decided he should not be heard. Bruce has been crouched slightly, attentive to his student's balance. He straightens with no hurry. He wipes his palms on a towel, slow enough that everyone can read his restraint into the motion. His expression does not sharpen into anger. It does not soften into apology. And that is the danger. In this room, in front of these witnesses, a reputation can be reduced to a joke in 1 minute. Bruce could argue and lose. He could perform and be accused of performing. He does neither. He looks once toward the back, toward that cluster linked to Ali, then back to the speaker. He says nothing. He only gestures, quietly, to clear a small patch of floor, and the silence that follows is not empty. It is waiting, because Bruce is choosing his reply with his body instead of his mouth. Bruce's hand stays raised for an extra beat, not as a warning, more like a conductor holding the room in place. The student backs away at Bruce's slight nod, and the shift is immediate. A few men peel toward the walls, souls whispering over the floor as they give the center back to the two bodies now about to speak for whole schools. He still does not answer the insult with a sentence. Instead, he asks a question, calm and practical, as if they are discussing tape on a wrist. "How far?" he says, and his eyes measure the gap without staring. "From here." "How fast do you want it?" Another small question follows, about the line of the strike, about whether the intent is to touch or to finish. The tone is steady, almost courteous, and that steadiness becomes its own kind of pressure. It leaves the skeptical man no easy exit. A few people expect a showpiece, some dramatic flourish, something to impress the younger fighters. Others assume Bruce will lecture, turn it into philosophy. Neither happens. He simply draws an invisible boundary with his feet, just a small rectangle of space on the boards, and waits for the other man to step into it. The skeptic does not smile. He does, however, take that half-step forward with the confidence of someone used to being right in front of witnesses. You hear it in the faint click of his finger joints as he flexes once, like checking a tool. His shoulders settle into a familiar readiness. In a boxing gym, that stance is a language everyone understands, and several heads tilt as if the room itself leans closer. Bruce answers with a short, contained nod. No grin, no bravado. His posture lengthens, spine straight but loose, shoulders lowered in a way that suggests he is keeping something in reserve. The clock on the wall becomes audible now, small, steady taps that had been swallowed by conversation a moment ago. Someone clears his throat, then regrets it, and goes still. Here comes the first turn. Bruce makes it clear he is not offering a fight. He proposes a brief check, distance and timing only. No winner, no humiliation, nothing that can be turned into gossip about a brawl. A few men blink at that. In their world, you either spar or you don't. This is neither, and that ambiguity unsettles them more than aggression would. Second turn, the skeptic agrees quickly, because it sounds safe. It sounds like a controlled drill, something a boxer can dominate with a sharp hand and a strong reputation. He takes another small step, and a couple of onlookers slide farther back, shoulders brushing the wall, making room for a circle that is suddenly too neat. Bruce inhales slowly, lifts his shoulders just enough to loosen them, then lets them drop. He looks once at the distance between them, only a few steps, and you can feel the room doing the same math, each person imagining what would happen if pride turned into contact. Now, there is nothing left to discuss. Only that narrow strip of floor between them, where everything will be decided by a single choice, made faster than anyone can prepare to react. The distance closes to something precise, almost delicate. Bruce turns slightly sideways, one foot angling out, knees softening just enough to lower his center without advertising the change. It is not a pose. It looks more like someone adjusting to a slope only he can feel. His arms hang loose, hands open, fingers alive, but uncommitted. Across from him, the skeptic lifts his guard into a stance that has paid his bills before. Elbows in, chin tucked, weight balanced for speed. There is confidence in how little he moves, confidence built on years of knowing that his hands arrive first. The contrast between them is immediate and unsettling. One body organized for exchange, the other for interruption. From somewhere near the wall, a voice slips out under its breath. "Easy now. No nonsense." It is not a command, more a plea, and it vanishes as quickly as it appears. No one wants to be responsible for what might follow. Bruce speaks again, softly enough that the words seem meant for the space between them, rather than the man himself. He asks that they keep the distance honest. No full power, no surprises. Just a measured start. His eyes never leave the center line, and that choice, watching the space instead of the face, registers with a few of the seasoned trainers. They exchange brief looks, as if noting a detail they hadn't expected. The skeptic nods. The nod is quick, almost casual. He believes his speed will still rule the moment, rules or not. You can see it in the way his shoulders tense a fraction too early, eager to prove a point without crossing the line he has agreed to respect. For several seconds, nothing happens. The ventilation hum becomes noticeable, a thin mechanical breath cycling overhead. A bead of sweat slips from someone's temple and taps the floor with a sound far louder than it should be. Bruce's breathing stays even, shallow but controlled, ribs expanding and settling with quiet regularity. His gaze does not blink. Then comes the first fracture in the agreement. The skeptic makes a tiny test, barely a twitch of the lead hand, more question than strike. It is subtle enough that half the room might miss it, but it carries intent. The promise of restraint bends, just slightly, toward advantage. That is the second turn. Bruce does not react outwardly, but something shifts inside his posture, like a door being unlocked. His weight redistributes, ready now for a tempo faster than the one he proposed. The risk sharpens in that instant. If the next movement is mistimed, control could slip into chaos. If it is too clean, pride will be wounded in front of witnesses who never forget. They stand there, separated by only a few feet, both aware, now, that whatever happens next will be retold in fragments, argued over, and weighed against reputations. And the moment that will fuel those arguments is no longer approaching. It is already beginning. The skeptic commits first, a sharp step forward meant to probe rather than punish. It is quick, economical, the kind of movement that usually forces a reaction. Several people expect Bruce to slide straight back, to give ground the way most men do when speed flashes toward them. He doesn't. Instead, he shifts along a shallow curve, feet gliding rather than retreating, keeping the same measured distance as if the floor itself were moving beneath him. The adjustment is so plain that it takes a second to register. Someone near the racks lets out a short, surprised breath. Not loud enough to draw attention, but enough to betray what they saw. The skeptic tries again, faster now. Not a full punch, but more than a feint. An honest half-strike meant to tag, to prove contact. The air cuts briefly with the sound of it. Bruce's response is nearly invisible. A light touch to the forearm, fingers brushing bone and muscle just long enough to redirect the line. The strike goes past where Bruce had been, finding nothing but space. Two men on the edge of the circle step back at the same time, heels thudding softly, as if their bodies understand the danger before their minds do. The room tightens, then stretches, adjusting around this small storm of motion. Here comes the first break from expectation. Bruce does not counter. There is a moment, a clean, open moment, when his hand could travel forward and end the exchange with a statement no one would misunderstand. He lets it pass. He stays with the rhythm instead of seizing control through force. The skeptic feels that absence as clearly as a blow. He resets his feet, eyes narrowing, recalculating. His second attempt has produced nothing he can point to, nothing he can claim. That unsettles him more than resistance would have. Bruce raises one hand, palm open. It is a quiet signal, asking for a pause, and it carries no threat. Sweat shines faintly on his forearms under the lights. His breathing remains steady, audible only if you are close enough to hear the soft release between movements. This restraint is the second turn. Some in the room begin to wonder if caution is all Bruce has to offer. Others, fewer, but watching more carefully, see something else. A man mapping reactions, choosing not to spend what he does not need to. Shoes squeak again as weight shifts. In the far corner, A whisper ripples and dies. The skeptic straightens, jaw set, convinced he has simply not pressed hard enough yet. What he does not realize is that the pattern has already been read. The space between them is no longer neutral ground. It has become a narrow channel, shaped by Bruce's timing, where the next step, one way or the other, will decide whether this ends as a misunderstanding or as a lesson no one asked for, but everyone will remember. The skeptic draws a deeper breath, chest lifting higher this time, and steps in with more intent than before. The movement is sharper, closer to what he trusts, speed backed by commitment. The circle tightens again, not by design, but by instinct, as if everyone senses that patience is running out. Bruce answers by changing the angle, not the distance. His torso inclines just a fraction, a tilt so slight it barely registers, but it places his center somewhere unexpected. To several observers, the motion seems almost incomplete, like a gesture cut short. One older trainer blinks, realizing too late that he has missed the crucial moment. There is a sound like rubber complaining under pressure as shoes scrape. The skeptic's balance wavers, not dramatically, not enough to call a stumble, but enough to interrupt his confidence. He halts mid-step, surprised by his own hesitation. His hands hover, unsure whether to finish what he started or pull back. Bruce does neither for him. He holds the distance with his forearms and open palms, not touching now, just framing the space so clearly that it feels occupied. The message is physical and unmistakable. You are already late. A few nervous laughs flutter from the edges of the room, then vanish when no one joins them. That is the first turn. The skeptic's certainty, so solid minutes ago, thins noticeably. He glances away, only for an instant, but the room catches it. Someone whispers, barely moving their lips, "Did you see that?" A plastic water bottle creaks in a clenched hand, the sound too loud in the sudden awareness. Bruce's face remains composed, eyes steady, jaw relaxed. Sweat traces a slow line along his temple, catching the light. He does not advance. He does not retreat. His breathing deepens slightly, controlled but ready, as if he is prepared to wait as long as necessary. Second turn. The power everyone expected still does not appear. No strike, no snap of dominance, just timing held in reserve, like a door that could open at any second. That absence becomes its own pressure. The skeptic swallows, shoulders tightening as he realizes that forcing the issue may be the only way to reclaim ground. The risk now cuts both ways. If Bruce lets this drift, the moment could dissolve into awkward relief, leaving doubts intact. If he misjudges the next exchange, the opening could turn against him just as quickly. The lights hum overhead. Breath sounds faster on both sides now. Everyone feels it. The edge where action and stillness meet. One more decision is coming, and it will either end this quietly or clarify everything in a single, unmistakable movement. The decision comes from the skeptic, not from Bruce. He surges forward, closing the gap with a burst of speed that erases the careful pacing of the earlier exchanges. It is the fastest movement yet, driven by urgency as much as technique, and a few people flinch before they can stop themselves. Bruce does not retreat. He steps in at the same moment, slightly off to the side, his foot landing where the attack expects emptiness. To those watching closely, it looks as if he has slipped out of view, not by vanishing, but by choosing a line that was never being watched. The timing is so exact that the skeptic's momentum carries him into a space that no longer belongs to him. There is a brief whisper of air as Bruce's forearm meets the attacker's arm. Not a strike. A guide. His other hand settles on the shoulder, with a firm, directional contact, the kind used to move a heavy door rather than to break it. The touch lasts barely an instant, yet it changes everything. The skeptic's body continues forward when it shouldn't. His foot skids, rubber scraping the floor in protest. He takes an involuntary half-step to recover, then another, stopping himself just short of losing balance completely. A sharp breath escapes him, more surprise than pain. That is the first turn. The movement has ended before many realize it began. The second follows immediately. There is no follow-up. Bruce releases the contact as soon as control is established. He does not capitalize on the opening. He does not display what could have happened next. He simply allows the moment to finish on its own terms. Silence drops, hard and fast. The ventilation seems to pause. Eyes lock onto the two men, then flicker around the room, searching for confirmation that others saw the same thing. A pulse beats loud in someone's ears, audible through the microphone as a low, human thrum. Bruce stands upright again, calm restored, as if it had never left. His hands lower, relaxed, empty. He has chosen restraint at the exact point where force would have been easiest. The risk was absolute. A fraction late, a fraction wide, and the result could have been humiliation or injury no apology would erase. Instead, what remains is a question hanging in the space between witnesses. If that was not power, then what was? No one answers yet. The answer is still settling, carried on the echo of a movement that lasted seconds and shifted the balance of the room completely. The skeptic steps back first. It is not dramatic, just a measured retreat of one pace, heels settling, shoulders rising as he finds his breath again. When he straightens, there is no anger in his face, only a recalibration. According to those closest, he gives a brief nod. Small, unmistakable. The kind of gesture men use when words would only cheapen what just happened. Someone exhales loudly without realizing they've been holding it. The sound ripples, permission granted, and the room begins to breathe again. Bruce lowers his arms and inclines his head in return. Not a bow meant for an audience, just enough to acknowledge the other man's willingness to step in. He keeps the distance intact, respectful, as if to underline that the exchange is finished exactly where it should be. No one claps, no one laughs. The absence of noise feels deliberate, earned. A towel whispers as Bruce wipes his hands. In the background, glass bottles touch down on a wooden bench, their soft clink grounding the moment back in ordinary time. Footsteps resume, slower now, spreading out instead of pressing inward. The ventilation finds its rhythm again, steady and unremarkable. People drift closer, but not in a rush. Conversations restart at half volume, careful, thoughtful. The tone has changed. Where there had been doubt, there is now curiosity. Where there had been judgment, there is calculation. A few eyes follow Bruce not with challenge, but with interest sharpened by humility. He turns back to his students as if returning from a short interruption. No announcement, no summary. He adjusts a stance, corrects a foot angle, speaks quietly about timing, about arriving early enough that force becomes unnecessary. The lesson continues, seamless, as though nothing extraordinary has taken place. That is the final turn. There is no victory claimed, no argument settled aloud. The respect in the room does not come from dominance, but from restraint witnessed under pressure. Bruce has defended more than himself. He has protected an idea. That control, properly understood, leaves no bruises, but changes how people stand afterward. By the time the session ends, the earlier remark about Kung Fu has lost its weight. It is still remembered, but only as the moment before silence took on a different meaning, and proof arrived without a single word demanding it.